How's it going, guys? Welcome back. Welcome to the channel if you're new. My name is Ninetales. I'm a Yorick jungle, one-trick pony. I play from OCE usually, but mainly I play on the Korean server now on around about 130 ping. What we've peaked at is around 500 LP master, and I figured, you know what, while we're in this position, we might as well make a massive guide for Jungle Yorick. So this is going to cover everything from runes, items, builds. It's going to cover jungle clears and matchups. I'm going to cover every single ounce of it, and I'm going to release it just in time for Season 15. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and stick around because I've got a lot of content to cover, so let's get straight to it. Alright, so for runes, I want you to run this page here. So you're looking at Conqueror paired with Triumph. One of the legends, I would recommend either Alacrity or Haste. I think both of them have their own benefits in their own way. If you like attack speed or you feel a bit more comfortable running attack speed, feel free to take the attack speed version. Otherwise, you can pretty much default to Legend Haste, and it's a pretty good pick. For the bottom row, it's personal preference. I think Coup de Grace is a little bit underwhelming for me personally. I think the other two definitely have merit and value. I prefer Cut Down because anytime you get into a fight with the enemy jungle, usually in the early river or even late game, Yorick plays very assassin-like. Your E's are going to be on people with full health. They're not going to be on people with low health, at least not to start with. So that's where the Cut Down really comes in handy. Whereas Last Stand, you kind of got to take damage first, and usually Yorick jungle plays an in and out style. So once you've already taken damage, you're kind of running away a little bit. So I don't really get much value out of Last Stand. In terms of your secondary page, though, this is where you have as much variety as you want. I would personally suggest you run Inspiration, and you take either Magical Footwear and Approach Velocity. By default, this is probably your best rune page for low elo ranges. I don't think there's going to be a single better page than this. If you're playing high elo brackets, especially on servers like Korea, you're going to want to take Cosmic Insight. There's a reason this is used by so many Korean high elo junglers. It's because it's overpowered as hell. It makes your smite such a low cooldown that whenever you go for an invade or you get invaded on yourself, at least you're more likely to have your smite ready to go. It's the small things that matter when you play in high elo, and smite is one of the biggest ways to get your lead out there and to keep that lead going. If you run Jack of all trades, that is another variation of this build. I'm probably not going to go on too much for this video, but it is there if you want it, and it fits with the inspiration tree as a secondary, so there's nothing wrong with taking that if you want. Other options, other valuable options right now, you can go Ultimate Hunter instead if you're running the domination tree. And along this path, I know in Season 15 there's a new rune. I would probably take the one that gives you a little bit of extra ward duration. I believe it might be this one or it might be that one. But whichever one gives you more time on your wards in the enemy jungle, that's going to be the one you want. That'll actually let you secure your early game because you can get some deep wards in their enemy jungle at level 1, and that ward will last you 2 minutes instead of 90 seconds. So 2 minutes is a great duration because it'll give you enough time to be able to tell if the enemy jungle has walked from one side to the other, and if you don't see them through that ward, you know they're probably invading you on one side of your jungle. So stupidly valuable, extremely good. Honorable mention for the sorcery tree. I think, look, this is a good tree. You're probably looking at getting Transcendence plus Gathering Storm if you want some scaling, or you can take Absolute Focus with Water Walking if you really want some early game pressure. Just note, with the current setup for the clears I'm going to show you, AD at level 1 doesn't really matter that much in terms of speeding your clear up. Yorick jungle usually uses the jungle item and abuses it really hard to clear camps, and the jungle item doesn't scale very well off AD. So this page here is going to do you a lot for early dueling. It's going to do you a lot for early movement throughout the river, but it's not going to make your jungle clear and overly a lot faster, okay? Before I forget, we got your last little shards here. I would strongly suggest you run this setup with the adaptive focus, health scaling, and health. The reason for this is because it makes your jungle clear much better. As I was saying, your jungle item scales poorly off AD, but it scales very well off armor, health, and magic resistance. So this actually adds a lot of damage to your early clear that you won't get if you run double attack damage. Ghouls don't really have as much AD as they used to. At least the AD scaling is quite low. So even one adaptive shard is only giving 1 AD per ghoul. So it's not that much. You're not missing out on too much by not taking it. And it makes your scaling a lot better throughout the game. If you prefer to run attack speed, go for it. If you want to run this and just run all that AD early, you can. Just note that when you're watching my clear guide later on in this video, it's probably going to be a bit off for your attacks because you'll be dealing less damage, more damage with your auto attacks, and I'll be doing less damage with mine in the video. The timings aren't going to be the same for you. So just keep that in mind. All right, so now that we've covered runes, let's talk about items. In terms of starting items, you're looking at either the green, blue, or red smite. If you're new to Yorick jungle, just go green. It is easier to deal with green smite than it is any of the other ones because it's very autopilot heavy. You don't have to think about using green smite. It's not like red smite where you've got to consciously put ghouls in side lanes if you want to maximize its use. Green smite just gives you a shield once you've completed the item. That shield refreshes after a bit of duration out of combat. It also refreshes when you've killed a large monster. Blue smite is comfortable for a lot of people though. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you want to opt for the blue smite variation. Whenever you walk through a bush and you've completed the blue smite, you'll get a lot of movement speed. The only difference, the thing that you should know is ghouls don't get percentage movement speed boosts. So if you run through too many bushes, there's a good chance you'll outrun your ghouls. It's not really a problem because ghouls have this inbuilt mechanic where if you're further away from them, they get movement speed boost. But it's just one to keep in mind. It does help your chase of enemy team if you're running after people. But apart from that, as long as you're consciously running through bushes, you will use this item. Red smite, as I was saying, is a bit more proactive. You actually consciously have to use this one. Yes, it will proc from your ghouls attacking, and it deals AoE damage. It's not single target, so it actually is quite a nice pickup. The problem with red smite is that you have to be within range to land your E to proc it. It does refresh its cooldown if you kill a monster, but the best way of really using this is you drop your Maiden bot. She hits someone, she slows them straight away. Meanwhile, you take the Gromp camp, it refreshes the cooldown, instantly procs the slow again, and it increases your damage to that target in the side lane. So red smite is mainly a Maiden drop pickup. If you're not playing Maiden drop, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. And to be honest, with the current meta and how OP tanks are, I still wouldn't waste your time with it. If it gave grievous wounds, I would probably consider it. But in the current meta, tanks are OP. I would definitely opt for the green smite. In terms of items, though, that are outside your starting, you're going to be looking at getting your first legendary item. Now, this is the biggest purchase you're going to get in the game. Your first legendary item is the most important buy you're going to have. I would strongly recommend you go Cleaver as a first item. I think Cleaver first is the best style for Yorick jungle in the game. I think Cleaver is underestimated on Yorick top laners as well. Just keep in mind, every single time your ghoul attacks, not only do they shred the armor, but they also give you 20 movement speed. That is a lot of movement speed to work with, especially if you're leaving ghouls to clear camps. You're keeping that 20 flat movement speed, regardless of where you run on the map. You don't have to be within proximity of them. And as I was saying earlier, ghouls don't get percentage movement speed increases, but they do get flat movement speed increases. So when they attack someone, that small amount of movement speed that you get, you're also giving to your ghouls. So Cleaver has so much in it that is really, really nice and useful. Every aspect of this item Yorick wants and Yorick uses. If you're going for a different approach, you can go Trinity. Now, Trinity is a nice item as well. I personally don't like it as much because tanks are OP as hell right now. But more importantly, Trinity is very PvE. You want to be pushing lanes, you want to be taking objectives. Trinity doesn't work to amplify your jungle clear as much as the Black Cleaver does. And also the movement speed boost that you get with Trinity is only linked to Yorick's attacks. So it's not physical damage, it's actually basic attacks will grant the bonus movement speed. If you're used to Yorick top, you're probably going to like Trinity better. So maybe start off with Trinity, see how you go. Trinity Force will probably change the rest of your build though, and we'll go over that in a bit. In terms of a third starting option, you're probably looking at something like Stridebreaker. Now, Stridebreaker used to be one of our key items. It used to be our best item, actually. But once they reworked it a little bit, they removed the flat movement speed bonus like Cleaver has. It's really come off my attention list. Every time I run Stridebreaker, the same thing happens to me. I feel like I don't have enough damage. I feel like everyone lives on one hit. And I feel like I'm just don't have much. And it's expensive. It's 3,300 gold. You're spending an extra 300 gold on this item to get just as good stats as Cleaver, but you're missing all this armor shred. Now, the real reason I encourage you to go Cleaver is because Cleaver really encourages a team-heavy playstyle. Remember, armor penetration is funny because if you have flat penetration like on a Serylda's Grudge, it only benefits Yorick. But if you have Cleaver, it shreds the armor for your team. So if you have a lot of ADs, like a Camille top, like an AD carry, like a Z mid, you're actually encouraging your team to deal damage to that target. It's a very team-orientated item. And you're not sacrificing a lot to do that, which is extremely valuable. In terms of your second item, I want you to buy boots immediately. I don't want you to think about anything else. Just think about boots. Boots are the key item for Yorick. I've said it a million times in all of my streams and all my videos. It doesn't matter how much AD your Ghouls have if they can't keep up with the person they're trying to attack. Remember, Ghouls get flat movement speed bonuses. So boots are a massive investment into Ghouls. Now, in terms of which one you want, these are the 4 I would probably suggest you think about. You're looking at Merc Treads if they have any form of CC. If they have triple ADs, you would be looking at Plated and Steel Caps. If they don't have any, or you like movement speed, you can go Boots of Swiftness. Boots of Swiftness are so good on Yorick, and they'll be so good next patch. And Ionian Boots are pretty good as well if you're playing jungle, because it really reduces that smite cooldown. Now, in terms of the boots upgrades that are coming next season, the biggest MVP is actually the Lucidity Boots. Lucidity Boots, when you deal damage with spells, you actually get a massive movement speed bonus. So you could have your Ghouls split pushing bot, and if they deal damage to a champion, you're getting a huge amount of movement speed boost. But keep in mind, it's only against champions. So I think at the end of the day, the new Boots 3 aren't going to change anything in terms of what we buy. It's still going to be situational. If you want MR or you want a little bit of tenacity, you would go Merc Treads. If you want armor or they have a lot of auto attackers, you're looking at Plated Steel Caps. Seriously, most of the time, you're just going to default to Merc Treads. It covers the biggest range of people. And you're always going to want some tenacity, especially the way I play Jungle Yorick is very front heavy. So people are going to be attacking you, CCing you straight away, and you need to be able to get in and get out. Now, I'm going to use this segment to cover Liandry's, because Liandry's is a very, very powerful item in Yorick Jungle, or Yorick in general. But it's not an item you should be buying every game. And it's an item that's misbought all the time, and it triggers me whenever I see Yorick mains buy Liandry's, because sometimes it's not a good item for that game and you're wasting so much gold into this item. So Liandry's is an item that you want to build when they have a tank top laner, when they have a bruiser top laner, when they have a team that is stacking armor, or when they have a support that is stacking armor and gets stupidly durable. You don't want to build Liandry's into a team when they have a duelist top laner like Fiora. Fiora is not a bruiser. She is a duelist. There's a difference in the champion type. If they have a Vayne top, you do not want to be building Liandry's, because you're not going to be dealing damage to them. The main goal of Liandry's is to give you a way to deal with people that are already dealing with your physical damage. So if they stack armor, all of a sudden you throw in Liandry's and your burn effects are really taking over that fight. There are some matchups as well that you really want to get Liandry's third guaranteed no matter what. Most important one that I can tell you is Aatrox. Aatrox with Liandry's burn into him is literally insane, because Aatrox cannot handle a Maiden split push. And that is the entire goal around building Liandry's, is eventually, if you build Liandry's, that tells me you want to play Maiden split push. Now, the reason she works so well with the Maiden split effect is because when she attacks, she deals 100% burn of that Liandry's effect. If you have 4 Ghouls attack that person, it does the same Liandry's damage as if you had 1 Ghoul attack that person. It's the same damage as if you had landed 1 spell on that person. So you can get maximum value out of this item simply by having a Maiden alone in a side lane. So if you build Liandry's, that tells me you want to split push a Maiden. If you don't split push a Maiden, you can still build Liandry's, but make sure they have a lot of armor. If they don't have armor, do yourself a favor, just get a Sterix Gauge. Get anything else, because you will still deal good damage to that target without having the Liandry's. Sterix Gauge is a great third item if you're versing something like Vayne, because it gives you such a huge amount of durability so quick, and it's such a clutch time. And because the shield is so high, it works great against armor and magic damage, physical and magic damage as well. In terms of your final 2 items, you can build whatever you want. These last 2 items, it's completely situational, completely up to you. Any of the items that you haven't bought before, you can look to opt into buying now. But generally, my last 2 items, I usually go GA as a very last item. And before that one, I'm pretty much just going something like a Overlord's Bloodmail, a Sterix Gauge. Even Eclipse is a great item at towards the end of your build. Remember, Eclipse has a shield based off how much AD you have. So the later you buy it, the better Eclipse shield is. One item that is hidden OP right now is Hullbreaker. Hullbreaker has been used and abused by AD carries now, especially in the mid lane too. People are realizing that the Hullbreaker's health is way too high, and the damage it does against towers and epic monsters is absolutely disgusting. So they're building on AD carries now. You should be taking advantage of this as well, because if you're nearby with a minion wave, giving all that super minion or that cannon minion a truck ton of armor makes that tower hit significantly less. Remember, the tankier the cannon, the longer your ghouls stay alive. So you can set up great pushes by being with your ghouls and alongside a cannon minion, but you need to be nearby the cannon, obviously. If you need MR, your last 2 items are where you're going to pick that up. You're going to pick up either a Hollow Radiance, a Canic Rugen, or you're going to get a Force of Nature. One of those 3 items is absolutely perfect. You can grab whichever one you want. Normally, you're going to default to getting the Canic. It just gives way too much shielding, and the MR is huge on it. If you need armor, you're going to go Dead Man's Plate, or if they got a crit 80 carry, or Yasuo or Yone, you're going to get a Randuin's. One of these 2 is absolutely fine. And if you want to round out your build with a Jak'Sho, you can. But I would strongly suggest you round out your build with a Guardian Angel, because what Guardian Angel does is you can drop your Maiden bot, then you can hard focus in the top lane. You can shove everyone down as 5. When they send someone to deal with your Maiden, you can just hard engage. And that GA gives you the ability to resurrect. You're probably going to be the only tank on your team anyway as Jungle Yorick, so people are going to rely on you to soak damage, and GA gives you a way to keep your Maiden alive in the side lane, but also act as the jungle role for your team. So those are the items that I think you should be worth investing into for Jungle Yorick. Honestly, if you're playing top Yorick, you can run the exact same build. You can just discount this entire top row and just start with a Doran's Blade if you really want to play top Yorick. Start with a Doran's Blade, or start with a Doran Shield if you're in a hard matchup, and simply just plow it out. This build will work fine for jungle or top. It's not specific to jungle. So in terms of skill order, what I would probably suggest you do is get Q to 3 points, and then after then you can choose whichever skill you want to max. The Q to 3 points early gives you reliability in terms of your ganking. It lets you deal a little bit more damage without having to rely on your E to land skill shots, but it also gives you a faster jungle clear and lets you get ghouls a lot earlier. Once you're level 6 though, you don't need your Q to raise ghouls because your Maiden will automatically raise them anyway. So that's when we start putting points into our E. Your E is surprisingly useful towards the middle of the game because the lower cooldown means you can chuck it more often, and this is a very ghoul-based build. When you start investing into items like Black Cleaver, like Spear of Shojin, like Liandry's, you actually want your E cooldown to be as low as possible because your ghoul's stickiness is what it's going to pretty much dictate how useful you are in a fight. So by getting that E cooldown low, not only are you increasing the stickiness of your ghouls, but you're also increasing your jungle clear speed, your reliability at doing fadeaway clears. So like counter jungling and then Eing it and then running away. With a low E cooldown, you can really amplify that speed and get their jungle camps and get out. You underestimate how safe it is to have your ghouls take their blue while they chase you. It's so helpful and it's so useful. You can also go for a W max. Usually W max is when they have a bot lane that has absolutely 0 gap closers, or they have like a Mordekaiser with 0 gap closers. W to 3 is usually enough early. W to 5 is a little bit greedy in my view. You lose out a little bit of the clear speed. If you want, you can go Q to 5 as well. I don't value Q to 5 that much because a lot of the way I play Yorick is very from a distance, and Q to 5 is very much I want to be in melee range. And Yorick jungle in melee range usually means a dead Yorick jungle. So most of the time you max E, you play from a distance, you run circles around them, and you just power farm using your E ability. The biggest tip I can give you for Yorick jungle is keep an eye on how much damage your ghouls are dealing, and keep an eye on how much damage the jungle item is dealing. You can see right now, if I attack this, it slows down how much my jungle item procs on this camp. So if I need to stop that, I just need to stop attacking. It's going to proc over there every time, and that way it secures that camp is going to die. Once that finishes, I can then get started over here again. But you got to keep an eye on your ghouls. If you're cross-mapping your ghouls and your ghouls are over here doing this camp, keep watching them. If it doesn't look like they're going to solo it, just stop your Yorick attacking over here, and then let them kill it, and then get back to attacking. Alright, so for your jungle clears, for bottom team, you're always going to start Wolves. The reason for that is because we want to put a priority on playing around the bot team. So you've got 2 champions in your bot lane. They are your most important players on your team. You want to play around them. You get them ahead, you're going to have a good game. Now, all your jungle clears for your bottom team will always start at Wolves, and they will always look the same until you cross the mid lane. So regardless if you full clear, if you invade, if you play for an early bot gank, you're going to do the same top clear, which is Wolves into Gromp into blue. You're going to start with your Q, and you're going to have whatever jungle item you want. Doesn't really matter too much. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to auto queue the big wolf. So you're going to see it's going to spawn here. We're going to auto queue it, and we're going to kite it out. You don't have to kite it too far. I only want your graves to be around about here. I don't want them too far. Your queue's available, you're going to auto queue again. Now you're going to hit it twice. Then you're going to switch your attack onto the small wolf. And you're going to auto, and just spam your Q button. You don't have to do anything else. Then keep all the wolves here until you get the big one below 200 health. Now you can kite it. Q the small one. The jungle burn should kill the other one. And you can raise ghouls and run straight to the Gromp. If you do it right, you'll keep aggro onto Yorick, and that's perfect. You're going to smite this, get it below 300 health, and run with the same attack. You're going to hit the blue, drag it in the bush. It's very important to drag it in the bush here. And it should raise the ghoul in time. Your E is on 5 seconds. If you're lucky, you can get an attack off from over the wall and get a nice E off. Then use the blast cone to get through mid lane. You should cross the mid wave at 230. If you cross mid at 230, it's a great clear. Now from here, this is where you want to make your decision to go for a full clear, invade, or a gank on the bot lane. Either way, you're going to start Raptors. If you're going to go for a gank clear, what I want you to do is I want you to kill this camp exactly like this. And I want you to E this camp here and run straight this way. From here, you're either going to run to their blue, or you're going to run to their bot lane, and you're going to run through this bush. If you instead had ran to their blue, you would probably get here at around 3 minutes in, and the red should die at approximately 3 minutes 12. Okay, so if instead you're going to full clear, what I want you to do is I want you to hit this, and I want you to kite it towards down instead of right. You're going to let ghouls finish this entire camp once you get to around 400 health. Now what you can do is you can run over here, hit the red buff, and you can E all those ghouls over to you. The burn from the jungle item should take care of everything. Now you can see I have one smite available very soon if you were going for a non-cosmic insight approach. Once this gets to around about 200 health, you can now E them all the way over to the Krug camp. And then if that red didn't die already, it would walk down and you can kill it over here. Otherwise, you're pretty much just killing the Krug camp as normal. There is not really a way to optimize this overly much faster than this, but you can have all of them done by around about 315 to 320. All right, so for your top team clear, I want you to start at the Raptors. I want you to auto it 4 times and then immediately queue it straight away. Then I want you to aim the big one. It's 2 attacks and a smite, then switch to a small one, 2 attacks and a Q. Now I want you to hit a small one, hit a different small one, and then hit the big one. And now I want you to run straight to the red. You should be able to auto Q reset off the red and drag it up a little bit. It's very important that you drag it up, because if you don't drag it up, the grave won't be in range to jump to the Krugs. And then I want you to E the Krugs, but only the big Krug. So I want you to aim it more on the left side. Once it gets to about 200, 300 health, I want you to walk away a little bit. And there you go. So you're going to chuck it right there. This ghoul will raise and jump on that Krug. And then you're going to run straight through mid. You should be able to pass through mid around about 219 to 220. If you're going for a full clear, I want you to E this wolf camp straight away and just auto queue the big one. You're just going to gun this camp down as fast as possible. Your ghouls should finish with the big Krug and they'll make their way to you. Now, because the camps only need the biggest one to be killed, that camp will actually respawn for you like normal, as if you killed the whole thing. I want you to drag this all the way down. Your ghouls should finish off those little ones, and then you can E this one. And you're going to wait for your next E, and you're going to chuck it at the Gromp, and then you're going to run away. So your ghouls will finish this whole camp and this whole Gromp camp without you being near. You don't need to worry about it. And that's good, and that's all done. Okay, so instead, if you're going for an invade clear, what I want you to do is I want you to walk down here, and I want you to E this camp as soon as you can. Now, there's usually a blast cone here. I'm going to teleport over just to replicate that. And you're going to hit the blue, and then you're going to kite this down. If the blast cone's not there, just hit it and then walk down. As soon as you get your ghouls here, you can E it, auto, and then run. Once the ghouls are attacking it, that camp will die. You can run straight to their red. Now, it's very important you need to run Cosmic Insight if you're going to go for an invade clear. You should be able to get to this red at around about 250 to 252, but Cosmic Insight will give you the ability to smite this camp away from them if they're still here before they get their second smite ready to go. If it's not there and it's already been taken, you can simply just invade. You can gank bot. You should be able to get to the bot lane behind them well before they've got a ward around about the 3-minute mark, because you would see that's gone at 250 and then you would walk this way and gank them from behind straight away. If instead you're going for a gank variation of this clear, I want you to do the exact same thing. Walk down here and I want you to E this as soon as you can. I want you to take the blast cone over. If it's not there, just hit it and walk around down here. Then you're going to kite this down as much as you can. Your ghouls are going to come, but I don't want you to cast your E. I want you to hold on to this E. It's actually faster for you to hold on to this E than it is to cast it straight away. You're going to keep hitting this until it gets to around 200 health. Don't worry if your ghouls take aggro, and then you're going to E all your ghouls over. If you do it right, you should be able to get 4 ghouls over there, and you can get to their tri-bush before 3 minutes in. So you can see from this one, we got there at 257 on the nose, and you can go straight for a gank around the bot side. Before we move on from jungle clears, I just want to quickly point out this little annoyance. As you can see on this replay here, this camp is respawned in the next couple of seconds. If you kill only the big Krug, it actually bugs out the minimap icon. So it will say it's respawning very shortly, when in reality, it's actually an extra 10 seconds or so. So you can see right now, it's a yellow indicator saying it's soon. The indicator's gone, the camp's still not there. So you actually have to know the time of when it's going to respawn. So if you throw over 5 ghouls onto the big Krug, it should respawn at exactly 4:53. So right there, you can see the camp has respawned. If you instead send over 4 ghouls, it respawns at 5:03. So as long as you know those numbers in your head, you will be all good to go. Okay, so when it comes to picking your jungle clear, I want you to put a very big importance on putting an early ward out. The best ward you can do is the enemy Raptors. So this is your #1 ward I want you to get out every game. If possible, get your team to do this ward, because it is very important that you see the Raptor camp for the entire first 2.5 minutes of the game. For your ward, if that one's not already done, you should do it. If it is already done, I want you to ward either where I've warded here in this river or at the enemy blue buff. Both of those will tell you very important information. If the Nidalee, like for example in this game I'm versing Nidalee jungle, most Nidalee jungles in at least high elo will do one of 2 things. They'll either perma invade you at your 3rd camp, or they'll invade you at your 2nd camp, one of the 2. I'm very used to seeing Nidalee do blue into my red, so that's what this ward does. It covers the Nidalee's entrance into my jungle as if she was going for my Raptors or my red. If you ward her blue though, you get that information guaranteed regardless, because you get to see her path to your red if that's the case. Here, we're going to start at the Raptor camp, because that's where I'm advocating people start at. Remember, you get that queue ready to go, and you basically get your 4 ghouls off this camp, and you go straight to the red buff. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to put your mind in the Nidalee's mind right now while I'm taking this red buff. And I want you to just think, look at that ward on the minimap. Look how long this camp is taking me to do. So I'm committing a significant amount of time into doing this camp. #1 is I haven't been invaded. So I'm thinking, okay, so if she's not invading me at this camp, she must be on the other half of the map. But then I don't see her pass through that ward. Now, it's 2 minutes 10. I would have assumed by this time that Nidalee, if she went red into Krugs, if she was going to full clear and go Raptors next, I would have expected her to pass through that ward right now. So in my head, that leaves 2 options. Either she started topside jungle, or she started red and she's ganking bot. Actually, there's 3 options. Or the 3rd option is she started red and she's invading my blue side jungle. Either way, my safest bet is actually to go to her blue buff here, because 2 out of 3 options mean she has control over my bot side right now. The only remaining one where I don't lose out a little bit is if I go straight to her blue. And what do you know? Her blue is here because she's invading my bot half jungle. Now, once you get used to your jungle, you start to learn pacing, you start to learn how much damage you can deal and how quickly you clear. I know in my head right here, I can get all 3 of these camps if she takes her time to get to me. So now that we know that, we're just going to gun the rest of her camps. But just make sure we're going to focus the big one. I'm not going to worry about killing all the little ones. They don't bother to me at all. I'm just going to make sure I kill the big wolf and we get straight to the Gromp when we can. And look, we've got our next smite coming up, so we can go straight for the Gromp. We can secure his smite. If she comes, there's a very nice wall you can do here, which is blocking out this entrance right here. So if she comes, you can just put your wall up, but that's okay. Now, when it comes to your level 3 fights, this is so important. If you ever get in this position and it looks like the enemy champion's going to jump onto you, If you're running Conqueror, just run at them. In this scenario, I'm running Ghost. You can see that. You just pop all your spells and run at her. You would be amazed how strong Yorick can be at level 3 fights. If she didn't flash there, she was dead. Literally just straight dead. And in this position, I'm more than strong enough to just run away. Lee Sin can't fight me here. If he wants to chase after me, he's just going to be wasting his time. And from here, we can go to the bottom scuttle, not the top scuttle, because the top scuttle is closest to Lee Sin, and it's also where we last saw Nidalee. We can go straight for the bottom scuttle, secure that, and then we have our bot lane respawn camps. If we want to recall after this, there's a lot of plays to make. We could even gank bot straight away. But you can see how we measured the entire Nidalee's playstyle just off 2 wards, and that's all you need. Now, a few more tips for jungle tracking. Yorick jungle is very unique because we have the ability to leave our ghouls to finish these camps. And what that does is it gives us a lot of uptime, but at the same time, it gives us a lot of downtime. So as you'll see from this clip, I throw all my ghouls at the Gromp, and it's currently 3 minutes and 4 seconds on the timer. I can't gank top because I can't get through to the Vlad from here. I can't gank mid because he's at the mid lane turret. So what do? There's nothing for me to do. And I go and check this bush, and there's no Shaco here, right? The enemy jungle is a Shaco, and Shaco loves to do invis ganks. So from here, I would ask you, where do you think the Shaco is? We don't know where he started. We don't know anything. But we can make an educated guess for where he's likely to be. If I'm in this bush right now, and I can't see the Shaco, that means he's not in the top lane. He's probably not ganking this Jace. We would have seen him by now if he was going to gank the Jace. He's not bot. He doesn't look like bot lane's that gankable. I mean, they do have a Pyke, but I don't really see a way for them to gank bot. But look at my mid lane. You can see my mid is pushing up. If Shaco was full clearing, it's very likely he would probably want to go for Scuttle in the next 10-15 seconds. Mid lane is very close proximity to the Scuttle Crab. So there's a very good chance he's going to gank mid lane. I missed out on a very valuable opportunity here to ping back my mid laner. I actually pinged back his red buff because I was figuring he's in the top half jungle. And I was actually right. He was in the top half jungle. The problem was he was running towards my mid lane from the top half jungle. So in this scenario, you can see I'm running Phase Rush, which is a little unfortunate because I would have killed the Shaco here if I wasn't running Phase Rush. And I probably could have killed the Smolder as well if I was a bit quicker with my auto attacks. But in terms of jungle tracking, everything the Shaco just did was predictable. So here's another example of jungle tracking. What I want you to do is I want you to keep an eye on this fight. So we get into a big tussle. There's a massive fight breaking out in the top half. I'm involved with this fight. The enemy jungle is involved with this fight. A lot of summoners are blown. I'm starting E as well. And you can see Karthus is in this top half. You can see there's a ward right there as well. And you can see there's an enemy ward in this bush. So what I would do is I would pause this right now and I would ask you, what jungle clear do you do? Because this is a very, very interesting example of jungle tracking and what to expect. So what I usually tell people is you get a lot of information from the way people play just in the first few frames that you can see. So this Karthus invaded my blue level 1. To me, that says he wants to start at my blue. Okay? Now, just because that blue's there and I can't see the Karthus in that bush, it doesn't mean he's not starting my blue. If I went to start that blue right now, I put my money on that Karthus running down and trying to steal this from me. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to start Wolves. But that doesn't mean that the Karthus isn't going to come back down. So instead, I'm going to take a gamble. I'm going to finish Wolves here, and I'm going to go Raptors second. We're going to kite this down so it's not within the Karthus's range in case he does start at my blue. And what we're going to do is we're going to go Wolves into Raptors. Now notice that ward that's in the middle of the river right there. That ward is actually going to give us a truck ton of information. Because what that ward shows is if the Karthus is starting at my blue buff, you can bet your ass that he's going to run past that ward in the most optimized route to get to his red buff. So we take the Raptors as normal, and we're quickly looking at that ward, and we can see that Karthus hasn't passed it yet. So he's either doing blue, up, and then all of a sudden you see the Karthus has passed that ward, and he started at my blue. Now look at the game time. It's 2:41. We were about 20 seconds delayed. So he was there long enough to take Wolves, to take the blue and the Gromp. So we can assume both blue and Gromp are both gone right now. So we can structure our clear knowing that both of those camps were gone. Now, when you have an enemy jungle starting your side, it sets you back, but it also sets them slightly back because it encourages them to full clear and stay a prolonged time in the jungle. When you have this kind of scenario happen, what you need to do is that Cutlass, I can guarantee you, is going to full clear his entire jungle from here. So I have a time frame now to gank a lane and to try to get myself ahead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to play through my bot side, and I'm going to try to get a gank off in the bot lane. If I can get a gank off in the bot lane, then that gives me priority to run up with my support, and run up with my AD carry straight to the enemy jungle and try to get myself a camp back to compensate for the one that he took. So we run through the river here, and you can see the bot lane's not gankable. I can't do anything about that. I run up, at least the Scuttle's here. We'll take the Scuttle, and now we can make a play. We can see what we can do with this time, because his blue is probably still there right now. I reckon if I walked up, that blue would still be there. But my mid lane is here, and that mid looks pretty gankable to me. So we're going to go for a gank instead. Doesn't work. And that's the problem with ganking with Yorick. As you can see, you run into a lane and all of a sudden you lose all your Ghouls. But Yasuo goes in. We can get a nice gank off. Unfortunately, I don't have enough damage. But that's absolutely fine. We can help our mid push this in. And look at that. Have you seen the card that's appear on the map yet? He hasn't appeared. Because everybody that doesn't invade full clears. Every single time. It's actually... Technically, it's a good play. But as you can see, he's bot side right now. It's 22 CS to 28 probably. We know Karthus is bot. This is time where it's extremely predictable to see what the Karthus is doing right now. Now, we actually have access to a lot of camps now. Because whenever you invade the enemy jungle, you need to make sure that you're there for the respawn camps. Otherwise, you're just encouraging the enemy jungle to just get all this extra experience from the respawn camps. Now, Karthus isn't playing at my Gromp right now, so I get my Wolves and I get my Gromp as respawn camps as much as I want right here. I believe I was going to go for my Gromp here, but I think I changed my mind and I went for my Raptors. But either way, it was a very solid early game. We avoided getting behind too much, and we compensated with better jungle pathing, and we were in a better position to be able to gank bot or gank mid while the enemy Karthus hadn't had any impact on the game yet. Alright, so here's another good example of jungle tracking. Whenever you verse a Bel'Veth, or a Kayn, or a Lilia, the most important thing you can do is I want you to ward your Raptors level 1. This ward will save you completely. Now, the important thing to know is you don't want to start Raptors. I used to actually encourage people to start Raptors against these champions until the other day when I started Raptors and I got invaded by the Bel'Veth, who proceeded to take the Raptors right in front of my face and smite it. Because she has the ability to last hit all of them at the same time, the worst thing you can do is actually start at the Raptor camp. So what you want to do is you want to ward it. And from warding it, you then want to go start at your Wolves. Now, this is going to cause two things to happen. You either start at your Wolves, you do a full clear, and Bel'Veth does not show at your Raptor camp, or she shows at your Raptor camp, and that changes your clear a bit. And as you can see, because of that early ward, Bel'Veth shows on my Raptors. Now, that gives you two things you can do. You can either go for a Wolves into their Raptors, or you can go a Wolves into blue, into Gromp, into a bot gank, and then use that bot pressure to then invade the enemy jungle. The thing is, you got to keep your eye on that ward, because I don't know if you just saw it, but Bel'Veth moved up. If Bel'Veth was smart, she would have gone her Raptors, my Raptors into her Raptors, and she would have controlled my entire early game. I would have been down a camp. It's unoptimized pathing from her, but she still gets the pressure off in the mid, from a mid gank. Instead, she goes red Raptors into my red, into my Krugs, and that gives me complete control over the bottom half of her jungle. I can do whatever I want to this now, because she's not going to get here in time to do any impact on this. Now, you don't want to do this if you're top team. If you're the top team, it's the worst thing you can do, because you can never vertical jungle if you're the top team as Yorick. You need to play around your bot lane. So in this game, you can see I have a Ashe Blitzcrank bot. I can't afford to not be able to pressure bot lane, because if I do that, they're just going to get dived every 5 seconds by the enemy jungle, and they're going to get a crap ton of kills, and I'm not going to be able to impact the game at all. So if you're ever playing top team, you make sure you don't vertical jungle. Try to be there on your respawns for your camps as much as you can, and still play around your bot lane. But remember, your presence is more valuable than anything. Don't die early, and you will have a great game as Yorick. As you can see, this fight ends up popping off completely. If I didn't miss that E this would have been insanely good for me. But unfortunately, I missed the E. I got knocked up by a crap ton of CCs, and it came out dead even. But it's not that big a deal because we ended up losing this game. But the early game pressure was still there. We were reliable, we were consistent, and we didn't have a stuffed up early game. So that's why you want to play this way. Now, Yorick Jungle's ganks are actually surprisingly good. You just got to make sure that when you go to gank a lane, you use your wall like an Anivia wall. You need to save it to make sure they either have no flash, and if they have no flash, you can walk right up and put your W on top of them. But if you don't know if they have flash, you're better off holding it, cast your E at max distance. As he runs away, you put the wall right in front of him. More often than not, what will happen is they'll jump right into it, and you secure the kill so easily and so... I mean, look at that. Look how easy that was. Similar to the last clip, if you don't know if they have flash, you should not be using your W on top of them. It's much easier that if you're in a position like this, where they're so close to your tower and you don't need to worry about them because they have so far to run to get to their own safety, you just hold your W. Don't use it straight away because eventually they will flash exactly like that, and then you can follow up with your W afterwards. You can see this one goes into a massive 2v2 fight. We just focus the Taric as soon as we can, and now we can follow up with Ivan straight after, and it's an easy triple kill for us. All right, before we move on any further, we're going to talk about jungle mechanics. Now, jungle mechanics on Yorick, there is a million of them. You're going to have to learn them all if you want to play this in the most optimal way. First thing we're going to cover is how many ghouls it takes to clear every camp. It's actually quite surprising. It's probably going to throw you off a little bit. If I asked you how many ghouls do you think I need to kill this wolf or this grump or this blue buff, you're probably going to say all of them. In reality, you actually need 3. So 3 ghouls at all stages will kill these 2 camps. So as long as you got 3, you could E this camp. All of them have to be full health, and you can't attack any other jungle monster camp. So if I eat this blue and then attack this Gromp, they won't solo the blue because they need the full duration of the jungle item burn to kill it. So in reality, if you're going to do it, you eat the blue and gank mid, and then that would solo the blue buff. For the wolves, however, you actually don't need 3. You need 2. So the way you would do it is you would have them only hit the big one. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can either simply E only the big one like this, or you would E the whole camp and attack the big one. The way it works is the ghouls will focus whatever Yorick attacks, but that target has to be hit with your E. If I just randomly attack the big one without Eing it, the game actually tells my ghouls to attack any of the minions in the proximity, and there's a chance that they only hit the small minions instead. So you can see 3 ghouls will finish that whole camp regardless. Now, with the Raptors, it's actually only 2. Surprisingly, you only need 2 ghouls to clear the entire Raptor camp. All you have to do is E them all, and then attack the big one, and then run away. As long as you don't trigger any other camps, that jungle item burn will kill that whole camp for you. Now, with the red buff, you can chuck 3 ghouls or 4 ghouls. I'd probably say chuck 4. It's a bit more consistent to throw 4, but 3 will work. And with this Krug camp, you will never be able to have your ghouls solo the whole thing. Unfortunately, there's a way you can make it so that they kill the big one plus the middle one, but they will not. They'll reset once they finish both of the camps, and you'll never get all the little offsprings from it. Now, when you're trying to attack the Scuttle Crab, it's a little bit finicky because you've got to watch out if it walks into a bush. You see, if you E the ghouls and your ghouls start chasing the Scuttle Crab, ghouls could easily solo the Scuttle, but the second it walks into a bush, your ghouls are going to lose aggro and they're going to run away from it like that. So the main thing to do with Scuttle is if you're going to attack it, make sure you attack it from the top and you want to chase it downwards and just try put it in your wall. Scuttle Crab has a really weird interaction with Yorick wall and it tends to bug out, and you can simply just do that if you really wanted to. The other thing you can do is you can actually corner it using all of Yorick's pets. So you can actually hard lock it into the wall if you were to move it down there. I'll see if I can actually get it replicated up here. So what you would simply do is kite it up into this wall up here. And then once your ghouls attack from the other side, you can basically body block it. So you would pretty much just do this and you would body block it into the wall. And you can make it so it either gets stuck or its movement is completely screwed over. Now, when you attack the dragon, it's very, very finicky to take the dragon. Because if it's an infernal dragon or a mountain dragon or an elder dragon, if you attack it from the front, your ghouls will take collateral damage from you. So what you need to do is stand behind it. At all times, just do this and it's much easier. You don't even have to worry about this. If you're versing an ocean or a cloud, it's irrelevant. You can just take it like normal. Dragon is coded to do half damage to Ghouls. So your Ghouls can tank quite a lot of damage from the Dragon. As you can see, this one here is pretty much taking like, what, 40 damage a hit? 40 damage a hit, exactly 40. So they can actually solo the dragon at pretty much all stages if it's a cloud or an ocean dragon. Infernal and mountain are much harder. You need to have quite a lot of extra health on Ghouls, so you would pretty much need like a Black Cleaver plus a Shojin before you can actually have your Ghouls solo the entire Infernal or Mountain Dragon. But any other dragon, as long as you got 4, you can pretty much eat it straight away, and it might take them a minute, but they will solo the whole camp for you. Now, with the Grubs are very interesting on Yorick because the first Grub spawn you won't be level 6 for, but the second one you will be, and Grubs have a very interesting interaction with Yorick's passive and the Maiden. So when the Grub is attacked, you see it spawns these little voidlings. These little void or grublings, whatever you want to call them, actually count towards Yorick's passive, but they also count towards Yorick's miswalk counter. So you can see my Maiden just raised 2 extra Ghouls there because the little Grub spawn. That means Yorick has basically infinite amount of miswalkers as long as the Grubs are here, and as long as you have the Maiden now. That's why the second Grub spawn is actually extremely valuable, because you can constantly refresh your Ghoul count just by being nearby the camp and you having a Maiden nearby. So, extremely easy to fight around Grubs. I highly recommend you persuade your team to fight for the second Grubs, at least a second. If you can bait a team fight and you've got a crap ton of health, you will be able to endlessly refresh your Ghouls throughout the entire team fight. So Yorick's Ghouls can actually solo the Rift Herald from over the other side of the wall. All you need to do is stand here, make sure you have a lot of health. You want to E the Rift Herald, it's going to charge in this spot. And then you want to stay in this location. So from right here, Yorick's Q can actually reach over the wall if you get into the right position. Your Maiden will attack it from this side, and all you have to do is just be ready to cast your E on cooldown. So if it's ready to go, you can do that, and you can Q it from the other side of the wall, and then you can smite it from this side of the wall. You just got to make sure you get over to the other side to go grab the Herald. All right, guys, so next up, we've got how Yorick's Ghouls can solo the Baron. So yes, Yorick's Ghouls can solo the entire Baron themselves. The way you have to do it is you have to have 4 Ghouls on you already. You walk to the Krug camp. You're going to take this Krugs. And I want you to leave 4 graves on the floor right here. It should pretty much just be autopilot, just kill them as normal. After you've got 4 graves there, I want you to walk around and you got to have the red buff right here and ready to go. I want you to have your E ready, and I want you to cast it and immediately run left. All of these graves are going to raise into Ghouls. You're going to cast your ult at the top, keep an eye on the red, and I'm going to cast your E and run up immediately. All these Ghouls are outside Yorick's check range, so they're actually all going to stay alive, and they're going to attack the Baron off the spot. So as long as you have a high level, usually around about level 13, 14, 15, and 2 legendary items, your Ghouls will solo this Baron every single time in just around about maybe 20, I don't know, probably 20 or so seconds. The second you walk into range of these Ghouls, though, it's going to despawn all the Ghouls. So make sure you stay away, make sure your team doing it for you. But yeah, Ghouls can solo it pretty much willy-nilly, no issues at all, and it's very, very consistent. Now, when it comes to playing Yorick's position in mid-game fights, you're usually going to have the position of Engager. A lot of the times, because junglers are usually engaged champions, and they're very tanky as well, a lot of the times you'll play team fights out like this, where you're the front line, you're constantly the person that's checking bushes and running up front, and sometimes you're just looking for that E pick. So someone gets a little too close, all of a sudden you chuck your E, you chuck your W, and because you've got so much durability in your kit, you're acting as that front line. You've got your either your Cleaver, you've got your Shojin, you've got your Liandrys, or you got your Sundered Sky like in this clip, and all of a sudden you're just so tanky that they have to get through to you to get through to your carries. Now, this is the exact same game, but you notice in this clip, I'm actually playing Peel instead. And that's because my team is strong enough for me to recognize that I don't have to do it all. All I have to do is play the front line right now, and as soon as I see an opportunity to peel for my team, I go ahead and do that. So you'll see in this clip, the cast comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, I'm just chasing the cast down. We can lock her in our wall. We're tanky enough to survive her damage output, but then we can still resort to backing up our team when we need. And look at that, our team is more than strong enough to take out the enemy team. Now, you'd be surprised. Some of the best team fights that you can do as Yorick are the ones where you're actually late to the fight. He's a lot like Jax in the way where you don't usually want to be there at the start of the fight. Most of the time, the jungle role is the engaging role, as I said, but Yorick actually excels really well at cleaning up team fights, especially after all the spells have been used, such as this clip where you can see there's just this massive fight going on. I'm late, I'm there at the end when everyone else is dead and dying, and all of a sudden I just clean up because everyone's exhausted all their spells and everybody else, and then no one's got anything left over to use on me instead. So when it gets towards the middle and the late game, usually you want to rely on picks to get an advantage. In this clip, you can see the Fiddlesticks is walking around in the enemy jungle. Now, I know the dragon's spawning very soon, and I can see this pink ward is in this bush. It's secure in this bush, so I'm just going to sit and wait for this Fiddle to come. The second he shows on the map, we chuck our E, and because of the items we got, because we got that Liandry's and the Cleaver, we start the engage that ends up winning us this dragon fight. So we get the pick, and now we can reap the rewards from the dragon. What I would probably note here is, notice how I go for the bot lane first. It's because I want to do a ghoul drop. So we want to drop these ghouls off in the bot lane and then run straight to the dragon. That gets us two things. It gets us experience in the bot lane, but it also knows, because it's not a threatened dragon, we know we're going to get it for sure. It's an easy secure, plus we get the absolute gold and experience reward from being in the bot lane too. Now, before we go into the last section, I just want to cover Maiden Split because it's a playstyle that no one ever uses, and I really want to showcase it because it's so important and it's so good to use as Yorick jungle. In this scenario, I want you to have a look at my gold. I just had a fresh buy, 22 gold. There's a massive wave pushing towards me and the Baron's about to spawn, or has spawned in this case. So we drop Maiden bot. Now, there's a reason you drop Maiden bot. What we're looking for in particular is we're looking for, number one, is a long lane. A long lane is any lane that doesn't have one of the towers. So if your bot lane has just killed the enemy bot lane tower and now they're playing mid, that bot lane is what I would consider a long lane. And the advantages of a long lane is it gets pretty much 3 minion waves before the Maiden enters the next tower. So you can see from right now, that is not just a long lane, that is a super long lane. If I drop Maiden from right now, this second, she's going to get at least 4 to 5 minion waves if no one actually goes and deals with her. So that brings us to the first reason you drop Maiden. Golden experience. If you drop Maiden bot lane, or top lane, or mid lane, there are a few reasons you drop mid lane, but mainly bot and top. You either want golden experience to really push yourself ahead, get your legendary items faster, and really get an advantage over your opponents. Yorick is a very stat-heavy champion, so you play off your item spikes big time with this champion. The second reason you drop Maiden is if you're trying to distract, if you're trying to get attention to that lane. So let's say, for example, I want to play for the Baron. I drop my Maiden bot in hope that the top laner goes to deal with her. And then we can either force on the Baron and fight the 4v5 fight, or we can bait the enemy top laner to go bot, who actually just dies from the Maiden. And the third reason you drop Maiden is if you drop her in the bot lane, but you're actually just trying to get a push going to get an objective. It sort of conflicts with number 2, but the main reason for the number 3 drop is that you're actually playing the 5v5 fight. Maiden is actually going to be on her own, and it changes your dynamic of how you play the actual team fight. So here you can see I've dropped Maiden bot. Now there's a massive wave there. Baron's about to spawn. The most important thing to do here is you get Ghouls, if you don't have them already, so that would be the Raptors or the Krug camp, and you keep an eye on the global objective, and you just stay safe. So that brings up another underrated tactic for Yorick jungle, and that's Ghoul dropping. Ghoul dropping is when you walk into a lane, let your Ghouls attack any minion in that lane, they will then proceed down that lane, and you can let your Ghouls push that entire top lane for free. In this scenario, simply walking into the lane and having my Ghouls attack 1 minion each is enough to do what's called a Ghoul drop. These Ghouls will now proceed down that lane, the entire lane, until they die. And the reason for that is because Yorick's Ghouls are coded in a way so that they have either one of two states. They either follow Yorick, or they run down a lane. That's the only two ones. In follow Yorick mode, they're in permanent shift click. So I don't know if you know what attack move is, but basically if you hold your shift button and right click, it tells your character to walk to a location. But if something walks by, like a nearby champion or nearby minion, Yorick will attack that champion instead. That's what Ghouls are in permanently. If they're following around Yorick, they're always ready to attack whatever comes nearby. Whereas in the current mode, as you can see, after they attack a minion in a lane, they just run down that lane and they don't care where Yorick goes. They only care about pushing that lane. You can reset that by actually getting them out of the lane, usually by using Yorick E, say for example on this Krug camp. So if I bring them back into this jungle area, they'll reset their aggro and they'll enter back that follow Yorick mode. So you can see in this map, I've dropped my Maiden bot, Ghouls are top, and there's a big team fight out in the mid. So we focus on getting Ghouls first, and the utmost importance is to not die. No matter what you do, you can't die. I see a lot of people drop Maiden and then they go and force a fight. It's the worst thing you can do. The goal is simply to stay alive. We don't want to die, because what ends up happening is the enemy team will see Maiden on the map and they panic. They start to go, who's recalling for her? Who's going to deal with her? Someone starts their TP. Someone starts their recall. The other person then cancels their recall because they say the other person's recalling, and it throws people into disruption. So right now, that Aatrox has realized that Maiden split pushing, and look at that, he's recalling. So now we have a 4v5 advantage. So we push the lead. We don't want them to recall. And then you can see they get a really nice engage off onto my team. And that puts us into defensive mode. We just need to stay alive no matter what. So you can see I always play very far behind. It's a little bit of a pain sometimes because as a jungler, you're pretty much your team's tank. But from this position, all I need to do is stay alive. So I don't know if you caught that, but in the top lane, Ghouls are getting that tower. And in the bottom lane, Maiden's just got an inhibitor. So we've gotten so much value out of this entire fight. Now, I started this play with 22 gold because I had just finished building my Faded Ashes. And now you're going to see by the end of this play, I have almost 3,000 gold. That is almost a 3,000 gold swing in my favor just from the Maiden and Ghoul splitting. So I highly recommend you look into Maiden split. It is an exceptional playstyle. It is unique, it is fun, and it is different. No matter what, 4,000 gold. Look at my items. I can buy, I think I went back and I bought a Liandry's plus a Guardian Angel in one buy, and we ended up coming back in and winning this game. Now, just a small thing on jungle mechanics. If the camp looks like it's going to reset, as you can see, there's this big circle around there. That means that's the reset range for this camp. So if I walk out there and this camp is trying to attack me, it's going to reset. If you walk back inside, you'll see it unresets. Now, this is a bit finicky with Yorick Ghouls, because if the Yorick Ghoul is outside, it will actually reset this camp. So keep in mind where you're standing when you're taking these camps. And just, if you have to, reposition it by walking it down and then walk back out a little bit. Okay, so you can see I've got Ghouls here. I've got the Scuttle Crab. I auto-attack it. And the Ghouls go and attack the Grubs, because for some reason they're told to attack the nearest jungle monster instead of the jungle monster you're actually attacking. To do that, you would have to E it first and then auto it, and that would redirect all of your Ghouls onto that camp. And then one more little thing down here, when you're taking the Krugs, just watch out with your E, because if you stand here and you E like this, these Ghouls are not going to make the jump over sometimes. As you can see, this Ghoul didn't make it, but these Ghouls did. Sometimes you'll get them, none of them will make it, especially if they're trying to get over this wall here. If you ever try to E them from this spot, they almost always fall short here if they're still in their spawn location. So there's actually a hidden mechanic inside of the Ghouls and the Maiden right now that people don't even realize exists still. A lot of Yorick mains take advantage of this. And it's that when the Yorick's Ghouls and Maiden are far away from Yorick, they actually get a shitload of movement speed. So you'll see right now my Maiden has 385 movement speed. But if I teleport to the other side of the map, they enter super speed mode and they just start chasing me 100 miles an hour. This is a really nice mechanic that Riot introduced so that Ghouls wouldn't fall behind Yorick. And they only get Yorick's boots movement speed if they're within range of Yorick's range. So that's why it was always so hard to get the Maiden to come with you, because she would always be too far away from you and wouldn't have your movement speed. Now, whenever you're running away from someone, a lot of people will often just turn to try fight. But it's funny, if your Maiden is actually occupied, let's say, for example, she's attacking this target, sometimes it's better to just run away, because then that super speed kicks in and all of a sudden she's outrunning the enemy team. They can't catch her. So when in doubt, just run away from the Maiden. She will chase you and she will catch up to you. Have faith in her. All right, guys, I just want to take a break here and say thank you for watching my video. I really, really appreciate it. At this point of the video, it's actually going to go towards my jungle matchups and jungle tier lists. It's a really long run. It's about half hour going through every jungle matchup. So there's timestamps along the way, but it's going to be difficult to get through. So I figured I'd do an interruption here. I'll say thank you for watching my video. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video if you're clicking off now. Otherwise, let's get on to the jungle matchups. All right, so for the last segment here, we're going to cover matchups. Now, matchups, the only way I can think of doing this is I'm just going to do a tier list, and throughout each of them, I'm going to talk to you about what items you should be going, stuff like that, what jungle clear to take, if they're vulnerable to invades and stuff like that. I apologize in advance. It's going to be pretty long, but I'll put timestamps for each jungler anyway, so you should be able to follow up with that. So to get started with, we have a Moo. Now, in terms of, this is difficulty. So S means it's hard, D means it's easy, okay? Amumu, it doesn't get easier. It's probably looking at a C or D. I probably put a C. Amumu is pretty vulnerable to invades, but he clears pretty quick. So you're probably going to do either a 4 or 5 camp invade if you want to. Just know Amumu is probably going to play off his bot side, so definitely try to keep your bot lane ahead. And you can feel free to just invade him every single time. He can't take you in a 1v1 early. If he builds AP, he blows up quick. You can also split Maiden against him later. Not a difficult matchup at all. It's definitely one of your best matchups. Brand is similar to a Mumu, but he's probably a little bit harder. He tends to clear very, very quickly, so you've got to really get your timings right if you want to invade him. Otherwise, you're looking at a standard build, nothing different than what I proposed in this video. Either of these champions, if it's AP based, there's very few AP junglers that Yorick struggles against, but the ones he does, we'll definitely talk about when they come. I would just opt to do a standard, either a full clear against a brand, or you're looking at invading him. I would probably encourage you to gank your bot lane or your mid ahead early, because if your AP is better than their brand, you can probably blow him up pretty quickly in a team fight later on. Bel'Veth is probably your first S. Bel'Veth is just absolutely, that's triggering me, absolutely annihilating you at jungle at the moment. Bel'Veth, to counter it, you need to ward your Raptors and start Wolves. Even if you're top team, ward your Raptors and start Wolves. Because if you start Raptors and she shows up, she will secure them all right in front of your face and your early game is ruined. So ward your Raptors, start your Wolves. If she shows up at your Raptors, you need to either gank bot lane and invade her Krugs, or run from your Wolves into blue, into her Raptors. But a lot of the times what they'll do is they'll go Raptors first into their own Raptors and they'll secure their entire bot side jungle. If that happens, look, there's a limit to how much you can do. Very few champions are like this. The three in particular are Kayn, Lilia, and Bel'Veth. If they can secure your Raptors in less than 5 seconds, which in this case it's possible, you're going to get screwed over either way. Your best thing to do is go Wolves into blue, into their Raptors. Just try to get the big one. If you're lucky, they'll go straight for their top side jungle and you can get their Raptors and their red, and then you can default to ganking bot, and then you can do a rinse repeat. The most important thing when you verse this champion is try to be there for your first Raptor respawn. More than anything, you need to be there for the first respawn. Because if she's there and she takes it right in front of your face, you're going to lose the ramp experience and she's going to get ahead of you extremely quickly, okay? Briar, I'd probably put Briar at A or B, probably an A. A lot of people struggle against Briar. An important thing to note is she can jump out of your wall. So I only learned her W is a no distance gap closer. Biggest thing that counters Yorick that I've realized lately is anything that has a gap closer that's non-targeted. So you're looking at Echo, Graves, Briar, things like that that have a very short gap closer that has a low cooldown that doesn't need something to target. And they're not at a cost for using it. Those are the ones that are worst to versus Yorick, because you'll verse them, you try to kill them, they jump away, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm screwed. I can't do anything else from here. So against Briar, you're probably looking to just go standard build, standard clear, and just try to get your bot lane ahead. A lot of these answers are pretty much going to be the exact same thing. Camille is easy. You can invade her if you want. Just make sure if you W her, run at her. Don't W and stand still. W and keep running forward, because a lot of the time they'll E. You'll want to try to get in the way of that second cast of the E so it hits you instead. And this is an easy matchup. Just try to get as much damage onto her as you can. And Camille wants to focus your AD carry anyway. So a lot of the times you want to give him a reason to aim someone other than Yorick so you can do your damage in the team fights. So get your bot lane ahead as much as you can. Cho, honestly, not worth talking about. Just invade him easy. Standard invade clear and you'll be absolutely fine. Darius is the exact same. Diana, she's a lot harder, honestly. Diana, she can get really strong. On Korea, they do a Diana Yasuo combo, and it is just torture to verse, because they don't even rely on the Diana E reset. All their goal is just to E in, and then R everyone together, and Yasuo just takes off from there. I'd probably put it in A. You'll have to get some MR at some stage. Either that's building MR and Sterix, or getting a more, one of the two. I'd probably say, I don't think you need to go more yet, Just play out the early game, try to get ahead. If you can get ahead of her early, you can invade her at her blue every single time. Dinah doesn't have a distance gap, a short closing gap closer, so she can't get out of your wall without targeting something else. The unfortunate thing is often what they'll do is you wall them and they'll jump to your Maiden. So what I'd probably suggest is just play in her face, get your bot lane ahead and try to get your support to come with you when you invade onto him. And I promise you, it's not that bad of a matchup, but if she snowballs, get ready to buy MR because you'll need it. She will one-shot you late game. Dr. Mundo, easy peasy, exact same as Mumu, just invade him early. Once you go Cleaver, Shojin, Liandry's against Mundo, he will shred like crazy. He can't do anything to you. Echo is your second S champion. He just has so much disruption that you just can't play the game. You can't do anything to him. You'll jump in on him. He puts the wall, he puts his thing down. You're stunned and he just runs, or he just jumps out of your wall, or he ults and runs away. Like, you're never going to kill him. It's like when you verse a Warwick in top lane. Like, you'll see him, he's a nightmare. You go to deal with him and you know in your head, you're just not going to be able to kill him. It's the same with Echo. The best that you can do with Echo is you need to give him a different target to aim. And then in the team fights, you just aim their carries and hope your team can deal with the Echo. It's usually my best advice. Elise isn't that bad. The problem with Elise is that you can't vertical jungle against her. So if you play Yorick versus Elise, let's say your bottom team, it's very risky to start at your wolves against Elise, because if she starts her wolves and then pass to your red, she can dive your bot lane straight away and just invade you permanently from there. You never want to give Elise control over your bot lane. So you can either start red at the bot team if you really want to. I'd probably suggest you just start wolves and try to get a deep ward onto your Raptors, sorry. So ward your Raptors level 1, start your wolves. That at least tells you if she invades your red. And if she doesn't invade your red, you're all good. If she does, you need to not go to hers. Just run straight to her instead and try to get your team to collapse on her. Either way, you can't vertical jungle into their topside jungle, because if you do that, she's going to dive your bot lane and your team's going to flame the hell out of you. Never vertical jungle against Elise. If you can get through the early game, level 1 to 5, you can just invade her permanently and it's easy. It's not a hard matchup. You just can't give her the leverage early to get control of your team. Fiddle is another one. If you're playing top team, just invade him. If you're playing bot team, just invade him. He's not a hard matchup. If you let him get out of control, it's going to be a hard matchup. But don't let him get out of control. Just invade him early. Save your W. What will often happen is you E onto him, auto Q, just keep hitting him. Eventually, he's going to channel his W himself. That's when you can put your wall on his hitbox. It'll knock him to the side. He doesn't get the cooldown refresh on his W, and it's an easy solo kill. Just be there. The biggest thing with things like Fiddlesticks is they're predictable champions. You know they like to farm. You know where they're going to be. So if you see where they start the first camp, you know they're going to be there in another 5 minutes. Try to get him on his spawn camps. You can get him on his respawns. You can kill him every time. Eve probably goes in A. I don't think she's a good matchup for Yorick. She is very easy early. Level 1 to 5, she's easy. But the problem is level 6 onwards, your team turns their brain off and she will just take over. You're going to need MR against Eve. And the trick to versing Eve is you need to ward her camps. You don't ward the river, you ward her camp. So you ward the Raptors, you ward her red. You want to see when she's taking that camp, so you see where she runs to after that camp. Eventually, she's a time bomb. She's going to take off. The best thing you can do is control her early and try to get someone else ahead and focus on those dragons. Apart from that, she's a time bomb. You got to end it before she explodes. That's basically it. Late game, pink wards matter so much. Pink the dragon, pink in bushes, most importantly, so you can see her pathing. Apart from that, I wouldn't specifically build MR against Eve, because if she's blowing it on you, she's not blowing it on your team, and you kind of want her to focus your team after all anyway. Gragas is an easy matchup. It's not that bad. Anything that's pretty average clear, he has to use his E into you if he wants to deal damage anyway, so it's not that big of it's not that bad of a matchup. Just build standard and clear standard, nothing fuss. I'm putting Graves S+. Graves is the worst matchup in the game for Yorick jungle. Nothing is worse than this. He's going to play in your face. He's going to AoE clear your camps for you. He clears faster than you. It's just an absolute all-round nightmare of a matchup. I strongly encourage you to ban it. Any of these S champions, I would encourage you to ban. If you do end up versing him, the best thing I can tell you is start your Raptors or start at your Wolves, depending on if you're top team or bot team, like the clears I've shown you in this video. And try to hit level 6 ASAP. You can run Ghost against Graves, and it works pretty nicely. But apart from that, look, there's not much you can do. He's tanky. His smoke screen is a nightmare for you. You're going to have to go something like Randuin's throughout the game and make sure you pick up Ninja Tabbies. Split Maiden against him is quite good because it can force him to come into the side lane. But if you verse something in the S tier, you're pretty much relying on your team to carry. Hecarim used to be down here. Now it's up here. For some reason, Hecarim gets way too much health, way too much damage, and way too much movement speed. Phase Rush, you should not be able to pick Phase Rush and deal more damage than me. I don't understand why he does so much damage. In fact, you'll soon notice the common factor of all these A champions are going to be Eclipse Shojin users. Eclipse Sundered Sky abusers. It's just an insane item combo. They're ridiculous to verse. Actually, that's where the next one's going to go as well. Lee Sin and Hecarim, they're both the same. Hecarim's going to permafarm against you, and then he's just going to get these ridiculous ganks off. You can invade him early and get ahead of him. You do win the 1v1 early, so try to get a lead that way. But if you get behind early, you really need to prey on your bot lane. Get your support ahead, get your AD carry ahead, and hope for the best with those two. Lee Sin, on the other hand, is a nightmare on Korea. If you're playing on Korea, you could even ban this. It could just about be S. I struggle against him a lot. He's another one that has a no target gap closer because his W can jump towards. You're not going to kill him. A lot of the times you think you're going to kill him and he's going to get away. You do win the 1v1s early at level 3 and 4 though. So if you can kill him then, you should be all good and you win this matchup. Gwen probably goes in A. She does too much true damage later and she heals too much. Early, I think you take control of this matchup. So I would just go standard Cleaver, Shojin, Liandry's build against her. And bear in mind, you're itemizing against the rest of her team, not just her. So a lot of the times you can hope your team deals with her instead and you just focus someone else. But she's pretty vulnerable to your Yorick W in the team fights. So if you can get her to dash out of your wall or you just play peel with your wall, it's actually pretty good. Don't underestimate her ult damage though. And when she looks like she's going to die, I promise you, she's Warwick 2.0. She's not going to die. She's just going to heal all the way back to full and she's a nightmare. I put Lilia in high A. She used to be S, but she got nerfed, so she's not as picked anymore. She's like Bel'Veth. She starts your Raptors, and she's going to secure your Raptors in your face right then and there. So start your Wolves, ward your other side of the jungle. If you're top team, you want to start Wolves and ward Raptors. If you're bottom team, start Wolves and ward Raptors. And just make sure if she's taking him, you need to at least get something out of it. If you're bottom team and she starts your Raptors, you need to run to your Krugs ASAP. Your red and Krugs, because you can't have her take control of that bot side. If you're top team and you start Wolves and she goes to your Raptors, you can just run to hers. But the most important thing is just, again, don't let her play top side. Don't let her play bot side while you're playing top side. It's the worst thing that can happen. Ivan, not that bad. He's honestly not that bad. Ivan needs someone else to carry in his face with him. So if you can control the bot side before he can get there, I'd probably level 5 gank bot at 3 minutes, and you should be fine. I don't think you'll have an issue with Ivan. He only really snowballs when he's got someone to rely on. Apart from that, it's fine. Kindred is such a funny one, dude. Kindred could be here. It could be here. It depends on the IQ of the player. I'm going to put it midway through A. Kindred, if you ward your Wolves and start Raptors, you will be fine for top team. And if you ward your Raptors, start Wolves for bottom team, you'll be fine. If you, at any stage, see Kindred run at you at levels 1 to 3, just hit her. Literally just hit him. It's so easy to win this matchup. The only thing I would probably suggest you do against Kindred is don't use your E to initiate camps. Instead, run up and auto them. Because so many times I've had Kindred run at me after I've just cast the E and I can't get my Ghouls off the camp. You need to hold on to your E just in case there's an invade. So you have a few options with counter wards. You can either start Wolves and ward your Raptors, or you can start Wolves and ward the entrance to your topside jungle. That shows if she's going to jump the wall and come for you at your blue. That often happens, so that's not a bad idea. I'd probably look into that, but try to get your team to ward for this matchup. It's actually not that bad. If you play around with it, you could probably get it to be a B matchup, but right now I'd probably put it in an A because she does play in your face a lot. Maokai goes where Gragas goes. This is an easy matchup. You never see the matchup anyway. There's nothing you need to play different. Jarvan is so easy, bro. Oh, I love any Jarvan matchup. He just jumps in on you with EQ, and you just kill him on the spot. He's another Eclipse what's it called, user, and it's annoying, but it's not that bad. You can win this matchup. I'd probably say Kayn. Ooh, Kayn goes somewhere around B. I don't really struggle with it that much, but he's like these other two where they focus your Raptors a lot. Later on, he's a bit of a pain to your team, but you can just main and split, and then he's forced to play full engage heavy. So it's a very easy matchup if you can get through the early game without losing too many camps. Jax, I would probably put somewhere around B. He's not a good jungler, but he's a good counter to Yorick, so you don't want to deal with him too much. Don't go Iceborne or anything like you would in top lane. Just try to get someone else ahead on your team so that he focuses someone else. Karthus is a nightmare if you let him get ahead. I'd probably put him there. Like Lilia, don't let him vertical jungle against you. So if he starts his blue, make sure he doesn't go to your red. Or if you start top side, make sure he doesn't start in your bot side. Because if you do that, he's going to just dive your bot lane. I had this instance where Karthus basically lane cut and then just chucked Q at my bot lane behind the tower. And they couldn't do anything and they just died. It was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Probably the easiest matchup in the game. Nasus, he's not going to do anything to you. Kha'Zix, everyone seems to struggle against this champion. We are extremely easy at versing this champion. Ghouls make it so we can't be isolated. So you can run at Kha'Zix at any stage and you will win the fight. So try to be there on his camp respawns. Try to get his buffs from him. Invade him if you want. He's not that fast of a clearing jungle. You can get there to 1v1 him early and you will crap on him, I promise you. Kled shouldn't be. He's not a jungler. Nasus goes with Malphite. These champions are not junglers, so you're not going to have any issues with them. You actually beat Master Yi in a 1v1 early, so feel free to run at him as much as you can. Once it hits mid-game and he gets his second item, forget about trying to 1v1 him because it's not going to work. What you can do is if he Qs onto you, W yourself, and then run, wait for him to land and then run out. If you max your W against Yi, it's actually quite good. But again, Master Yi is like any other jungler. He relies on his team. He tries to 1v9, but he needs someone else. Try to give him someone else to aim. So get your bot lane ahead. Your AD carry is really good at dealing with Yi because they have the peel of their support, and often some of them have self-peel as well. So really good matchup against Yi. Just make sure your bot lane's ahead. Mordekaiser, I haven't versed it enough. I imagine it's somewhere around here because Mord's not that bad of a matchup for Yorick. Just make sure you hold your W whenever you verse a Mord. If he ults you, you can then W around yourself and run Ring-a-Ring-a-Rosy around it. Otherwise, if you W him, he flashes over and all of a sudden you're screwed. Don't worry about this matchup. Even if you're playing against top Mord, it's not that bad. It's a pretty easy matchup. Sion, I versed it once before in career. It was a pain in the ass. He just focused on my entire jungle the entire game. It was a nightmare. Not a hard matchup at all. Just make sure you go Cleaver, Shojin, Liandry's. Eventually, at least you need all three. And split your Maiden. Against this champion, split your Maiden. It is so easy. He can't deal with it. He just dies to the 1v1 every time. Morgana, I would probably put around B. High B, maybe. She clears really quickly, but she doesn't have a gap closer. So whenever you got someone that doesn't have a gap closer, it's usually a really good matchup for Jungle Yorick. You can just trap him and then just throw your Ghouls and then run away, and your Ghouls will pretty much do all the work for you. You don't have to worry about it. Nefiri, I hate this champion. I'm so glad she isn't played because I can't stand it. I just don't understand where the damage comes from. Never see her, so it's hard to say. It's mainly Nefiri mid, but I have seen the odd Nefiri jungle. From what I've seen so far, you can invade her, and if she misses her Q, you can all-in her. But if she hits both Qs, you're going to be in for a hard time. Here's your next S+. I can't stand Italy. God, she is everywhere on Korea. Actually, the next two are S+. Nidalee comes under the same bandwagon as Echo. They have a no target gap closer that they can use to run away from you. She can also play in your face and from a distance. And for some reason, I'm a hook magnet. Sorry, not a hook magnet, a spear magnet. Bear in mind, your Ghouls will not block skill shots for you. They have a tiny hitbox. So Nidalee's spears, when it looks like they're going to hit a Ghoul, are probably going to run past that Ghoul and hit you in the face. So don't rely on your Ghouls to block spells. Run Ghost against her if you want, because if she jumps out of your wall, you can just Ghost her and run her down that way. You will win the 1v1. The problem is she jumps away from you, and all of a sudden she's too tanky to get to. So you really need to lock her down. If she tries to invade you, like Kindred, just turn on her and hit her. You will win the 1v1 if it comes down to it. The problem is you can't secure it because she just jumps away every time. So she's good at setting you behind. It's just whether or not you stay behind or not is the problem. She can't really scale into the game. She throws spears and hopes for the best. So if you get your team ahead, or you're there to counter jungle her or counter gank her, you can actually stay somewhat relevant against Nidalee. It's just the really mechanical Nidalees are nightmares, bro. I just can't stand them. Rammus is easy peasy. Just invade him so often. Just be there on his camp spawns and get your mid lane ahead for this matchup. Anything I'm telling you to invade, you need to get your mid lane ahead, because your mid lane is the easiest one to just go, oh, I'm going to run this way, or I'm going to run that way from top and bot roams. Get your mid ahead, get an early gank off. Instead of ganking bot, go mid, and then see if you can get some invades onto this Rammus. It's an easy matchup. Rengar, I've never struggled against him, but for some reason he has a really high win rate against Yorick, so I'm going to put him in A. Rengar's currently bugged. If you Yorick wall him, if he tries to attack a move, he actually instantly hits the Yorick wall. For some reason, I don't know why. He's a bit of a pain. He's always going to use his passive to jump out of your Ghouls, away from your Ghouls and out of your wall. So watch out around bushes, but apart from that, it's not that bad of a matchup. Just go Ninja Tabbies. And if you ever have to fight him, just try to 1v1 him, see how you go. Most of these matchups, you'll learn as you go. So if you lose the first fight, the next time you play against that champion, you won't make that mistake again. Warwick. I'd probably put him somewhere up here. Maybe there behind Gwen. He's not that bad of a matchup. He doesn't have great ganks. He has to put himself into melee range to really do anything anyway. Just know that it's not like Top Warwick. Top Warwick is a nightmare for Yorick jungle because he never dies and he always survives whatever ganks and he always solo kills your teammates. Jungle Warwick, you can anticipate his plays. You can be there to counter gank, deep wards, and ward his buffs. He likes to favor wolves, Gromp, blue, and red. So those are the 4 main camps you need to have warded. He also likes dragon, so try to get some river wards out against him. This is probably the most common matchup you're going to get. Yorick versus Viego. If you're on Korea, this is everywhere. Not a hard matchup at all, but if he snowballs, you're going to lose. A lot of them will go crit. You win the 1v4. You win the 1v1. Sorry. You win the 1v1 fight at level 4. So fight him in river. If you want, invade him. Just, if your team's not going to follow, full clear into him, and then just run at his face. You will win this 1v1 every single time. But if it gets to like level 6... and he gets a lead, you're probably going to have a really hard time. He is a real hard matchup once he gets ahead, because surprisingly, he wins the 1v1. I don't know how, but I lose to Viego in 1v1s. It's bloody stupid. I hate every bit of it. If he gets ahead, start building Randuins and get Ninja Tabbies and play for your team. Remember, if he gets that reset, you're screwed. I wouldn't go Liandry's into Viego. In my experience, it doesn't do anything. Rumble... I never really see it, but he is really strong around his passive, so don't go fighting him when he's got his passive on. And his Q enhanced actually AoEs all your Ghouls. It's a pain in the ass. Skarner is S. God, Skarner is a nightmare, dude. Him and Zac. These 2 champions, actually, I put Zac above Graves, but these 2 champions have the same thing in common. They have a massive jump. They get stupidly tanky, and they have CC out their ass. Zac is probably the worst matchup in the game for your jungle over Graves. The only reason I ban Graves is because he's more common. If I see Zac, I dodge. That's how bad it is. Zac top, Zac jungle, Zac anything. He does too much damage for how much durability he has. And he has so much disruption. The worst thing that counters your jungle is disruption. Anything that has a stun into a knockback, stuff that stops you from being able to do what you want to do, that is your counter. Skarner is a pain because you can't kill him because he goes into his E. So what you generally want to do is just fight him 1v1 if you can find him in the river. He's going to play into your team. He's not going to play into you. So you need to ward the entrances to your lanes and try to predict where he's going. Find out where he started. That way you know where he's going to be in 5 minutes time, and ping for your team. God, just abuse pings against this champion. This champion, just dodge. Just dodge. Trust me, it's not worth the headache. I'd probably put Rek'Sai around about a B. If she snowballs, she's a nightmare. Gosh, she's so tanky. But I never really had any issues with Rek'Sai. She's not that big of a problem for me. Just build Cleaver, get some armor later if their team is very AD heavy, but I don't think you'll struggle with that. You can go for an invade clear against her. You should win the 1v1 early anyway. But generally speaking, Rek'Sai needs to get someone ahead, and she needs to target someone in your bot lane. So I would probably say Rek'Sai comes under a B. She likes to get her bot lane ahead in my experience. At least Korean ones do. But I've never really struggled against her that much. Shyvana is so close to S, dude. Shyvana is so close to S. Did I actually cover Nocturne? I don't think I covered Nocturne. Nocturne is passive AoE one-shot your Ghouls. That's why he's so strong against Yorick. It's actually not that bad of a matchup. I'm putting him S because the general, for normal Yorick players, this will screw you over. Once you get used to this matchup, it's actually not that bad. You just need to make sure that when you fight him, you have other people around you so he focuses someone else. You never want a 1v1 Nocturne. If it comes to like a Grubs fight, you don't do it because he's gonna win the fight. You got to have a way to either replenish your Ghouls through the Grubs or have someone else on your team that can help you out with the fight. For Shyvana, she is really easy to win early, but once she hits level 6, she will win the matchup every time. Her Q one-shot your wall at every health, as long as she's in dragon form. So she plays from a distance. She does a whole lot of damage from a distance. She's a nightmare. She does a Shojin Liandry's build. Honestly, dodgeable matchup, but it's mainly how much your team enables her to get ahead. If you can set her behind early, she is useless. She's going to focus on dragons, so you can see where she's going to tunnel as well. So deep wards out in their jungle is really helpful versus Shyvana, but just go standard build and get your bot lane ahead. I feel like I'm just going to recycle saying that a lot. Shaco, it depends how he plays. If he plays in your face, he's a pain in the ass and he's up here. I'll probably put him somewhere around here for the moment. I don't think he's that bad of a champion to verse. The problem is a lot of people won't pre-ward early against Shaco, and then he invades, he gets ahead, and all of a sudden he's one-shotting you later. If you get early wards out, get your team to ward out early for you, and you can play around his invades. Late game, you can E, and then if he goes into ult, you can actually see which one the main one is because your Ghouls will target the main one still. So it's actually not that bad of a matchup. If anything, the Shaco supports are worse because they stop you from being able to play the game. Sejuani, you're probably looking at doing probably put somewhere in B. I don't think she's that bad. If she invades you, or if you find her in the 1v1, she's really tanky in the first half of the fight, but the second half of the fight, she doesn't really do enough damage to get you in a significant health range where you might die. So she relies on her team, and that's a lot of the case for a lot of these junglers, actually. Pantheon, I probably put in B. He doesn't do a lot of damage to me, and he doesn't have a W. He doesn't have a gap close to get outside of your wall apart from his own. So I wouldn't put too much worry into Pantheon. Just invade him if you want early. He's really vulnerable to invades. I never see all in jungle. I don't know why I've got him here. Xin Zhao is such an easy matchup because his only gap closer is the one he uses to engage. I would definitely claim for the follow. Thank you for the follow, dude. Xin Zhao, I would probably invade him as much as you can. That seems like the easiest way of dealing with him. He might even come to you, and if you find him level 4, you can win the 1v1 against him. Again, like Kindred, don't use your E to initiate the camps, because there's a chance he might be waiting there for you. And if he's there, you can E onto him instead, and it's the easiest win of your life. Xin Zhao does not win the 1v1 early against you. Wukong is a pain, dude. He's W. He's just so hard to see which one's the real one, and when he's inside your wall or not. I feel like I blow a lot of my damage on the Wukong clone instead of the Wukong. I probably put him somewhat high. Just know once he's altered and he's focusing on your backline, his backline is open. If you're a good Yorick player and you can land your E, it's such an easy matchup because you can just focus on his team while he's busy distracted with your team. Nunu, I would probably put him somewhere around B. The only cheesy strat is Nunu can Q your Maiden. It's not that big a deal. You can Yorick wall his W charge anyway, so it's not that big a deal. Zyra, high A. She farms too quickly for us to keep up with. I don't know what was with this champion, but she just farms so fast. If you can land your E on them, you can just run at her. Swiftness boots are so good into Zyra, but Mercs, I'd probably say just default to Mercs. But if you can land your E on her, she is free kills every single time. Just got to watch out. Don't underestimate her pet damage as well. Talia, she's a nightmare, bro. She could be S if she really wanted to. The problem with Talia is that she likes to play for your bot team, and she can do a lot of damage from a distance. She can engage from afar. So a lot of the times what they'll do is they'll gank and focus your bot lane. They'll run behind the tower. And this is another one like the Lilia example. You can't vertical jungle against her. It's a terrible idea. Always play into her. Never let her play around you is the worst thing you can do. This used to be a really good matchup. It used to be D, like perfect. Now I'd probably put it low A. Sundered Sky plus Eclipse made this matchup significantly harder. She goes where Lee Sin goes. I'd probably say if you can get a lead on her early, this is the easiest matchup in the game. Like, genuinely, this is easier than Nasus. Because all she can do is jump into you. She can't do anything else. But if you can't get ahead early, or she gets her irons before you get yours, you're going to struggle. It's not unheard of for her to just blow you up in a fight. On the best part about her, though, is that she focuses on your team. If she's not aiming you, you can literally just steamroll her so quickly in a fight. So, like I said, a lot of these answers are you need someone else to be ahead so you're not targeted. Olaf never struggled with in my life. He's not going to do too much to you. He can't get out of your wall. Just know, in the 1v1s early, you actually do win against Olaf level 4. But just try to take the fight slowly. If it looks like he's going to turn it on you, or it looks like someone else is going to come, don't try to force it. When it comes to mid-game and late game, just use your W as a shield around him so that you don't wall, like versing Mordekaiser, don't wall him, ward you and run around it. He can't outrun you, and that wall acts as an Anivia wall and it screws him over. I usually just wall my carries, that way he can't actually get to him. Volley is a pain, dude. He's so tank. And he never dies. Like, this champion is like Zac. It is so annoying. If he was more popular, I'd almost put him S. He has so many ways of getting through your Yorick wall. It is a nightmare. Dodgeable matchup, honestly. You probably have to get someone else ahead. Maybe your top lane is actually pretty good, but I'd be more inclined to say play around your bot side. Just because having the extra person there instead of just being a 2v2 in top lane could actually help out quite a lot. He's likely going to aim your team anyway, not you. Silas, I don't even run into it. Trundle I never run into, so I'm not going to talk too much about these two. But just a standard build and a standard clear, play through your bot. And Talon, lucky last. I've versed it once before in Korea. He's fallen out of flavor. From what I can see, he likes to play Invade, so I'll probably put him a little bit higher. Not a bad matchup, but just know your Yorick wall is absolutely useless against him. And if he's smart, he'll know to jump out. If he's dumb, he won't. But not that bad of a matchup. Probably somewhere low A, I think. And honestly, that's pretty much it. Wow, that was a mouthful and a half.